Here's a question from Lamont Moy. It says, Emperor stated they, DEY, were Caucasians. Who were the days?
Caucasians are Moors. Duh, duh, duh. This goes back to the linguistic form. Caucasus Israel, under the rulership of Aunt, who was known as Aunt Hagar, who ruled the Yucatan, who ruled the Moabite nation in southwest of Mexico, known as the Yucatan. And her grave right now is in Mecca on the other side. How come they won't say that? Because the name that was given to the hybrid came from Yaqub Kushidus, Israel, etc. That's where the name come from that was given to the hybrid for sake of the hybrid experiments. Because there is no such thing as Caucasian in the concept that has been adopted in the modern world. You need to know your Moorish history. So when you're making these statements, the assumption on the connotative level of animal husbandry must not be established as the genetic and political reality as it has been promoted, because it's a false paradigm.
Did I just hear you say that the Caucasians were Moors?
Because who you think Yaqub was? He's a scientist.
But
his middle name was given to them.
But was that not an experiment that created a hybridization of Moors?
Now
and
you
other
got it. Yes,
beings?
now they're called amalgamated Moors, also referred to in the Bible as the Great Amalgamation.
Would those also be the lepers?
Yeah, exactly. That was put behind the lesion, behind the rock. So that's why the rocks or the mountains were called the Caucasus Mountains. It was named after the great experimenter with the 12 women scientists, who you rarely hear talking about. You only hear usually of Yaqub. And instead of saying Yaqub, they'll say Jacob Ladder.
They also
people need to really know. You need to know your Moorish history.
They also say that the women scientists that carried the experiment, they try to give them an extraterrestrial origin. They talk about Enki and Enlil.
Don't we all know? Let's be real. Don't we all know that all of us are not necessarily from this particular planet?
Oh yeah.
And that we have peopled other aspects of the planet, and in this particular hemisphere of the galaxy of this solar system, the humanoid figure, though taking variable forms, is common to this particular solar system. That's a fact. Now, the deal of it is the hybriding. This is where you go into, for those of you who have Oxford dictionaries. Now, here's your Oxfords. Let me see your Oxford dictionaries. You go look up hybrid. And hybrid, and they will tell you, and this is again why they don't have certain dictionaries in our communities, and this is due to the Sigmund Freud mind control operations in the education system. They will tell you in reference to the Albions, because remember, where we place them in what you call England, or land of Angles, what you call England, etc., is that when we ruled, that area was called Albion after we put the hybrids there behind the rock. This is where you get the Caucasian designation given to them from the scientists, etc. So that was given to them. This is also where you have the heterogeneous exposure, even in Oxford Dictionary. And they will say to you, and I think it's in around entry 8 or something like this. This is for you scholars to do your research. And they will say, we Englishmen are but heterogeneous hybrids at best. You will not find that in your regular dictionaries because of the animal husbandry um, dispensation, etc., by Sigmund Freud and adopted by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates in 1902. With those, now they're not going to go into that logically because you will recognize that that you have what you will call the hybrid rebellion, and this is demonstrated to you in movie form, like the nemesis of the wicked witch of the west, and then the good witch of the east, and they're in battle representing matriarchy. Then you have Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz representing the matriarch, and then you have the Yellow Brick Road, which represents the zodiac constitution principle of the Canaanite Moabite nation cosmology, etc. And then you have the Anthropopithecus Pongidae with wings, representing the hybriding of off-world, etc., i.e., you would call them the flying monkeys. And then you have the Wizard of Oz, which represents the dogma systems of the representation of the Godhead principle, the corruption of humanity with the corruption of religion. All of that's in the Wizard of Oz. And it's also in many other movie forms that they tell you your history. And then you'll see, for those of you who have been into movies, look at the keep in mind, Moor in French is Moreau. So keep that in mind. That in French is a branch of Latin, Moorish Latin. And then you're going back to Iberia. And this is why a lot of people who really don't know the history of the takeover of Iberia in Europe will say, oh, well, Moor is French. French is African, you dummies. You know, our people, and the scholars have done this to our people. And the real deal of it is, that's why even in more recent years, because people who really don't know this history of Central America and the Yucatan, you know, keep thinking that Caucasian is really the pale-skinned species of the human stock in its hybrid form. Well, yes, that's a name given to them, but they're actually given the experimental term of albine or albion. This is where you get the term albino. And when you do the research and you all go into your old dictionaries, the land that you called England is known as Albion. Why? Because that's where we took the albinos. This is where it's talked in the Septuaginta in the Bible as the people with the lepers. They also, now you understand in Ireland when they talk about the leprechaun and the gold, etc., and the little green men, etc., and the golden rainbow and the pot of gold at the end. And then you talk about, as a matter of fact, in your King Alfred, for them, this is named after King Alfred in the Ireland area. And you'll talk about Tag Day, or when they ran the Moors, they say the snakes out of Ireland. That's you. They were killing off the Moors, the Dubs, and the Picts, etc. So in many ways, they're actually exposing the history. But if you don't know how we got to where we are, you see these things, and if no one makes you reconnected to it, you dismiss it as if it belongs to the Paleolith, when actually they genocided you out in Iberia, or what you call Europa, and now they're doing it to you in North America, which is silent weapons for quiet wars. They're continuing their Inquisition operations. That's why I make the distinction, and particularly as of late, hybrid Europeans, to make the distinction between the hybrids, which is a mixture of Pongidae and human species, and with some off-world. This is why they're hybrids. And this is also why they're warring on you. You need to understand, because they're not the people of the earth. They're hybrids. Now, that's not to be used negatively. That's the truth of the human walk. And if you are not ready to handle that, many people in secret societies know this information, but they only speak of it in attic chambers around the world. And so because they've hidden this history from the people keep looking at these as an original people. They're not original. They are hybrids. And the two particular heterogeneous species is the Pongidae and the humanoid. And that makes what you know as the Albion or the Caucasian tag from the experiments coming from Patagonia, that is now called Argentina. And so when you do the research and you start looking at the problems that a man named Hitler had with trying to eliminate some of those problems that were inculcated in Germany that also was breaking them, etc., you're going to find that some of the history that was told to you about Hitler is incorrect. Now, you're getting in an uncomfortable area with a lot of people. And so some of these things are never talked about openly because you will be sanctioned. Because one of the first things that the Circle Church Circle Church and Curia members must do is pledge all economic operations of the United States Corporation Company of the Jesuit order to what they call Yisrael. Now tell me that's not a fact. So when you start learning who's really been running the banks, who's been running the schools, who runs the United States, who runs the judicial system and the POW camps, everybody wants to get persimmon mouth. It's the hybrid Europeans. Sometimes referred to as Khazarian, sometimes referred to as the Cabal, sometimes referred to as the Satanists, etc. But that's what's been happening to you and the world to this very day. And it's important for you to comprehend that so that you can start healing the Moorish nation. Because without the knowledge of how you got to this position, you will be fighting the wrong fight. That's the fact, y'all.
Okay. So DD, it says there are groups claiming to have AB bloodline of Jesus / Abraham Lincoln's Armenian lineage, saying they want sovereignty restored. However, without mention of Moors. I've been saying that. What does that mean for us?
Now,
I've been asking
remember
you that.
what we said to people for years. I said, remember I said this for years before this stuff came out with this cover up with this biological warfare, which they admit to right here, right? And I said, some people mistake when I say that Trump is a sign. I said, but keep this in mind, they're battling over our estate. Yeshua, because it ain't no Jesus. Jesus is a password. And that's why symbolically for the knowledge, Jesus is used connotatively as meaning justice when the knowledge comes out. Or when the truth comes out, it will make the people free. So what you call Jesus is Yeshua ben Yosef. And so they were Canaanite Moabite blood. This is, again, why they'll give you signals even in all your secret societies. They'll say, who was Ruth the Moabitess? And they'll say, Ruth the Moabitess was Jesus' great-great-grandmother. So who is the Moabites? Moabites are what? A branch of the old Canaanites from the land of Canaan, which is now called Israel. Isn't that interesting? Right next to Hikupta, that you know is Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Oh, so the real Sabians are Moors, aren't they? So it seems like somebody who's been claiming to be JEW are not who they claim to be. And they've been pretending to be you and killing you off. So we need to heal the nation, don't we? Without a knowledge of what happened to you, you will be distracted by people who are placed among you to distract you into not things are not, that's not that they're not important, but they're not where your cure is. I just remind you that, so you need discernment. And I'm not saying don't do certain things. I say do everything that you do with knowledge and discernment. And what we try to do here at the House of Reawakening Minds is share with you a lot of knowledge that we know others have, but they stay away from, because it will kill their little clubs and it will take their hands out your pockets. And it will get you to stop sacrificing the next generation with a bunch of beliefs and then start directing them to a knowledge. And with knowledge, the truth comes. And with the truth comes, so does the liberation and the restoration of the estate. So know ye the truth, and the truth will make you free. I'm more interested in that than a title, but I'm not condemning titles.
Ava asked, how is all this going to matter if they're fixing to shut down the grids and shove people into camps?
Of course, that's their plan. Of course, that's their plan. Now, this is your plan. The time has come, apparently, that the issue of nation states are coming up every day, and borderlines of territorial jurisdiction are coming up, and they're going to be forced to address what they haven't been addressing. So meanwhile, with the King Alfred plan, the genocide and biological warfare operations is already in place, isn't it? Isn't it? But the knowledge of the people will what? Start causing the people to say, I think I ought to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and confess my own and honor my mothers and fathers so I can have right of inheritance. Oh, I think some of these things that people have been saying every year have a relationship, but not the way they thought it was when they were in these club organizations under the name of religion and dogma. It was never placed to them in the real world. Now we are all facing it. This is why I said a couple of years ago, people talk all kind of trash about their spirituality. Well, now you're going to have to prove you God. I ain't arguing with you. Do your thing. I'm about to work. And we all have shadow work to do. So let's work on our lower self, and Mother Nature will open up what you need. Because it's proving that the people won't buy or sell without that mark or license from the beast. Oh, so the beast is the number of a man, isn't it? Oh, you thought it was some Baphomet signal somewhere. No, he got 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head, and he's been doing a lot of dirty stuff to you, and you thought he was your government. Thought he was your banker. Thought he was your lawyer. They're Roman Curia members and Satanists of the Dark Order. And they've been ruling this planet. And the cleanup is on its way, because the earth is your house. Get your house in order. Repair the nation. We need healing. And I'm going to tell you bluntly, because this stuff is coming out as we speak, not just later, because you're experiencing it now. A lot of people are going to need consolation and solace systems, because a lot of people aren't going to be able to handle necessarily, they're not going to be willing to handle the ugly that they're going to be exposed to. And before it gets better, it's going to get worse. And this is my response to the sister and to the statement. I support your statement in caring and everything, but I'm also realistic that in war, there's casualties. All the people, this is not an issue, although it could be an issue of saving the world, because whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever will, let them hear. And whoever so will, let them serve Rome, and Rome is going to devour them. That's the intent. It doesn't have to happen, but only by your will. And so what are we doing? We're doing our little part of trying to help in this great missionary work of uplifting fallen humanity. And often by dealing with subject matters and information that many people over the decades have deliberately avoided. They're more interested in titles, and they're more interested in being liked by the people. And they're more interested in having their hands in the people's pockets. Oh, and I'm not denying that it takes finance to do things. I know that. However, that's not where I'm coming from. So I don't need a title. That's again for those who keep thinking I need a title. I don't need a title. I'm Taji Guy with the Cheap Sneaks. Get over it.
So to reiterate that earlier question about whether you accepted that, but the answer was no.
Exactly. Because the deal, see, this is what must be comprehended too. And I'm saying this with all due respect and love and caring for all of our people. People have been groomed under animal husbandry to continue to do this practice of what they call the sacrificial lamb. And so the concept of human sacrifice is still with us, even though it's been hidden. And so people's dynamics of thinking in their so-called spiritual development is thinking that they need to sacrifice Jesus type thing, not recognizing that that's Rome's method of operations. And that's not Jesus's philosophy. Jesus was a target. Yeshua was a target for sacrifice. That's not his philosophy. And so they keep associating the sacrifice principle with Yeshua when it should be associated with Rome, who are bloodlusters. They come as the makers or bringers of peace when actually they're the peace breakers. They're showing it openly now because they don't have the time to keep on BSing you. They're doing it openly now. They're calling it mandate.
Mandate.
And mandate is not law. I think y'all better go in your law dictionaries and look up mandate.
Why don't you read it? What does it say in there?
Chicken?
What does it say in Black's law about a mandate?
Oh, let's go to the mandate. And you know, this is again, Dr. Naila, why they don't teach our people, you know, fundamental laws. Mm-hmm. So mandate is a command, an order, or a direction, written or oral, which court is authorized to give and a person is bound to obey. Mandate is a judicial command or precept proceeding from a court of court or judicial officer directing the proper officer to enforce a judgment, sentence, or decree. A mandate is a precept or an order issued upon the decision of an appeal or a writ of error, directing action to be taken or disposition to be made of case by inferior court. And in some of the state jurisdictions, the name mandate has been substituted for mandamus. Mandate is a substitute for mandamus. Is why you see me all over years talking about for warranto, a writ, an agreement of jurisdiction, and an agreement of mandamus. So as a formal title